Monday. It's May 11th, 2026. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful, and tonight we're watching the signs together. Cyber chaos in our schools, bold new ways to teach America's founding principles, a viral story sparking big cultural questions, major moves on the world stage with President Trump, and updates from Russia and the Middle East. Let's dive in. First up, a massive cyber attack has hit the online learning platform Canvas, used by thousands of schools and universities worldwide. The hacking group Shiny Hunters is claiming responsibility. That name almost looks like it's auto-generated by like combining two words together like you would use it with a password generator. Shiny Hunters. Or they could be using the term from the hit show that was canceled way too early, Firefly, where they popularized the phrase shiny as a stand-in for good, excellent, or awesome. Shiny Hunters. Anyway, they say they stole data on roughly 275 million students, teachers, and staff. That includes names, email addresses, student ID numbers, and even private messages. The breach hit nearly 9,000 educational institutions, including big names like Harvard and Princeton. Hackers defaced login pages and demanded ransom, threatening to leak everything if schools didn't pay. This is the second time Shiny Hunters has targeted the same company in just 8 months. Many schools were in the middle of final exams, so deadlines had to be extended while systems were down. Canvas says most services are back up now, but the investigation is ongoing with law enforcement involved. Deadline for the ransom demand is May 12th, tomorrow. Parents and students, stay alert and keep an eye on your accounts. Make sure to change your passwords if you haven't already. In brighter news, pop star Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide himself, has teamed up with digital DNA labs to bring something brand new into classrooms. They've created AI versions of America's founding fathers, like George Washington, to teach real civics lessons. Kids can actually interact with these historical figures, ask questions, and get accurate answers based on trusted, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, historical records. The CEO of Digital DNA Labs says it's like having a FaceTime call with George Washington. They rebuilt the images and voices using archives so the lessons feel authentic. This program is already being tested in Florida charter schools, and the early feedback is excellent. It tackles a huge problem. 70% of Americans recently failed a basic civics quiz. Only 22% of 8th graders are proficient in civics. Yeah, it's because our schools don't teach squat, and they don't teach in a way that kids will learn. It's more of just an assembly line of future workers. The AI also helps students who still feel anxious about speaking up in class after the COVID years. They can ask questions privately at home and keep learning. This launch comes right as President Trump's Task Force 250 and Freedom 250 initiatives are rolling out year-long celebrations for America's 250th birthday. Events like the big July 4th salute to America and the Patriot Games are all about reigniting patriotism and strong civics education. Great to see culture and technology working together to strengthen the next generation. Now, a strange viral story out of suburban Chicago is sparking much bigger conversations. A woman was caught on video taking Canada goose eggs from a nest near a mall in Niles. Illinois wildlife officers charged her because it's illegal under state law. The case blew up online, and now advocacy groups are weighing in. David Smith from the Illinois Family Institute points out that Canada geese are not endangered. They're actually quite common and sometimes even a nuisance. He says it's striking how aggressively we protect these eggs while our own national birth rate keeps dropping. What a weird link. It's true. The U.S. fertility rate is now around 1.6 births per woman, the lowest in decades, with only about 3.6 million births recorded last year. That's a 23% drop since 2007. Smith also brought up so-called bubble zone laws around abortion clinics that limit how close people can get to offer sidewalk counseling or even speak. He calls it a free speech issue. The debate is heating up. Are we protecting wildlife more than we're protecting human life and family? It's a sobering cultural moment worth watching. On the international front, President Trump has publicly rejected Iran's counter-proposal to the U.S. peace plan, calling it totally unacceptable. Iran sent its response through a Pakistani mediator and described its offer as reasonable and generous, including claims over the Strait of Hormuz. Talks are now deadlocked. Oil prices jumped above $103 a barrel this morning because of continued disruptions in the region. No new fighting has broken out, but tensions remain high. The president is also floating the idea of suspending the federal gas tax to help American drivers. Boy, that'd be great. In Denver, new surveillance video has been released showing the terrifying moment a trespasser jumped a fence at Denver International Airport and was struck by a departing Frontier Airlines jet Friday night. Wow. The footage and audio are now public. Airport officials are reviewing security after the breach happened just 2 minutes after the man cleared the fence. 12 people suffered minor injuries during the evacuation and smoke. This one is a wake-up call for airport security nationwide. Yeah, maybe put a little razor wire, make your fence a little bit higher. And finally, from Russia, Saturday was Victory Day, the 81st anniversary of the Soviet win over Nazi Germany. Vladimir Putin spoke in Red Square and denounced NATO, calling the forces in Ukraine an aggressive force armed and supported by the entire NATO bloc. He said Russia's goals are just, and that today's soldiers are inspired by the World War II generation. But here's the notable shift. Putin also said he believes the war in Ukraine is coming to an end. Though he added it is still a serious matter, he even expressed willingness to meet President Zelensky in a third country. The parade itself was the most scaled back in years. No tanks, no heavy missiles, heavy security, and mobile internet blacked out in Moscow. This came during the 3-day ceasefire brokered by President Trump that runs through tomorrow, May 11th. That would be today. Which included plans for prisoner exchanges. Both sides have accused each other of violations. Additional note, folks, President Trump has invited Elon Musk. This is really cool. We actually have a video from Benny that we're going to watch about this because it was a really cute video. I wanted to share it with you guys. President Trump has invited Elon Musk, Tim Cook, and a group of top American CEOs to join him on an important trip to China this week. We'll keep watching how that develops, especially with everything happening on the global stage. Anyway, that's the latest we're watching in the news tonight. These stories from cyber threats and education to culture and life issues to wars and rumors of wars remind us to stay vigilant, pray without ceasing, and keep our eyes on the signs. Anyway, we'll have more updates as they develop. And for now, let's move on to the Daily Torment Report, where we look at the posts from the two men who are tormenting the world the most, Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Through trials faced, through testing days, you've kept my word, walked in my ways. Though strength was small, you held your ground. The door I've opened cannot be bound. They turned away, they closed their eyes, but I have written what none denies.
government.
Through fleeting fear and fleeting shame, you stood for truth, upheld my name. Hold fast, your crown is sure. The door I've opened will stand secure. A pillar raised in the temple of my God, forever sealed, forever strong.
Alrighty, kicking it off with Donald Trump. 11 minutes ago, not too shabby. As I said at my State of the Union address on February 25th, the American dream of home ownership is under attack. For example, Rachel Wiggins, a mom of two from Houston, placed bids on 20 homes and lost all of those bids to gigantic investment firms that bypassed inspection, paid all cash, and turned those houses into rentals, stealing away her American dream. She was devastated. Stories like this are why I signed an executive order to ban large Wall Street investment firms from buying up single-family homes. Also in my speech, I called for Congress to save the American dream of home ownership and ban these purchases permanently. Senators Bernie Moreno and Tim Scott have worked to ensure my call becomes a reality and have a bill which has passed the Senate with nearly 90 votes. Wow. I'm asking Congress to pass that bill, the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, which would ensure that homes are for people, not corporations. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. You know, if the Lord were to tarry, I'd probably sell my house and convince my family to somehow embrace van life, but we'd have to do it in a way. It would have to be a new way of van life, like a farming way of van life. I think what we would have to do is we would have to buy land strategically in different places across the United States, and we would have animals there with helpers or keepers, or do it in a way that's self-sustaining, and we would just travel from place to place, because I feel like I haven't traveled enough in my life. You know what I mean? Anyway, probably not going to happen. I expect the Lord's going to return this year, if not in the next 3 years. Right? I mean, like, everything's lining up. It's getting close. All right, the South Carolina State Senate has a big vote tomorrow on redistricting. I'm watching closely, along with all Republicans across the country who are counting on their elected leaders to use every legal and constitutional authority they have to stop the radical left Democrats from destroying our country, including leveling the playing field against their decades of egregious gerrymandering and census rigging. South Carolina Republicans, be bold and courageous, just like the Republicans of the great state of Tennessee were last week. Move the U.S. House primaries to August, leave the rest on the same schedule. Everything will be fine. Get it done. President Donald J. Trump. Lion Dog says there's an emergency meeting. Do you have a link? You would think it would show up on his post here. Let me do a refresh. Are you sure it's an emergency meeting? I see those quite regularly, and they're just YouTube surfacing the videos. I don't see anything popping up. Let me search emergency meeting. Nope. 5 years ago. All right, well, let me know if you've got a link. I'll look for it. All right, these are nominations. It is my great honor to nominate Michael Martin, Antonio Pozos, Angela Colmenero, Kasdan Mitchell. Ooh, that's not a bad idea, Kelly. Pick strategic places because my wife, all she cares about is being around animals. Like if we could come up with a way to like comfortably Like we would have to get like a really nice horse trailer. If we could come up with like a combo house slash horse trailer, it was really nice for the horses. That would be fun. Just travel across the country. That's all she cares about is having her horses. We could probably even put like a little chicken cage in there, keep my daughter happy. But again, like I said, I have a feeling the Lord's not going to tarry. It feels like we're very close to at least the first harvest, if there's going to be multiple harvests, or the rapture, if there's only one rapture. It really seems like it's 2026 with what's going on with Iran, with what Donald Trump is doing. Even this reunion of Donald Trump and Elon Musk is a positive indicator that we're going in the right direction. What I think we're waiting on though is the Jews, because Jesus said that they wouldn't see him again until they say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," which could be an indicator that they may have to go through the wrath, along with some Christians too. I imagine that there's going to be both Jews and Christians that need to go through the wrath in order, because there's only a certain group. One out of the 7 groups, I believe, are promised to be kept from the wrath in the trials that are, so there's kept from the trials coming on the whole world, and then there's also an indication that some will be saved from the wrath to come. So depending who's all are in those groups, there's an indication that there's probably another rapture afterwards. There may not even need to be honestly, there may not even need to be another harvest afterwards. It could just be that that's when Christ returns to the earth. What I think is going to happen is hopefully this year there's going to be like around August 12th. It's got to be fall, right? Because the spring feasts have all been fulfilled. We're waiting for the fall feasts to be fulfilled now, and this year would be a really good year. I mean, it could stretch out another year or so, but like all signs are pointing to this year. So this year, symmetrically, would be the best. I imagine he would gather together his elect, and then we're probably taken somewhere while the earth is renewed back to the Garden of Eden status. And that, I believe, is what's also going to be constitute God's wrath, because you're going to have the earth rotating and quite possibly something happening with the water. All those trumpets and bowl judgments that talk about like things being burned up, I imagine, are a reconstruction phase. When you look at it, where it's being renewed, because there's a lot of crap that needs to be burned up that people have done to the planet. And when all is said and done, that's probably when those who were gathered together, the elect that were gathered together, will return. And anybody who survives that will still be alive. And then as far as new bodies or what have you, I imagine that there's going to be some level of new bodies, especially for those who are raised from the dead. Now, if you believe that Paul's writings are genuine, then that would mean that the dead in Christ are raised first. So that would have to take place this year. If you believe that Paul's letters are fraudulent, which that's a discussion we haven't had yet, and it affects a lot of letters, a lot of books in the New Testament. Romans, Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Thessalonians, Titus. I mean, like, there's a lot of books attributed to him, and there's books that are specifically attributed to him, and then there's some that are disputed on whether or not they're attributed to him. Like Romans has multiple authors. I've been doing some research on trying to figure out what Paul's writings have to do with the end times. And there's actually very little that he wrote in regards to the end times. Most of it is addressing issues in the church. Most of it is addressing like manifestations and like, living, the instructions for living according to, the example that Christ set. So one of the reasons why I kind of stay away from Paul's writings is because they bear very little. They don't really change anything. The only thing that they really change or add is Thessalonians, what talks about the man of sin, the son of perdition, what role he plays in the end times. A little bit in Corinthians about the temple, about the dead in Christ being raised first, stuff like that. But when it comes to like the signs and the timeline, I can't think of anything in Paul's writings that actually adds to or takes away from paying attention to the timeline. So one of the reasons why we don't get into a lot of it on this channel. If this were a more teaching focused channel to where it was meant to like do an exhaustive study of the scripture and instructions and how they apply to our lives, we would definitely get into a lot of that stuff. But I try and strike a balance between, paying attention to the timeline, focusing on, watching prophecy being fulfilled, paying attention to what the two witnesses are saying, and also what's written in the scripture. So it's a balance. All right, back to Donald Trump here. I'm pleased to announce nomination of Daniel Domenico. Okay. Daniel Traynor. I'm very, very much looking forward to my trip to China, an amazing country with a leader, President Xi, respected by all. Great things will happen for both countries. President Donald J. Trump. I want, and yet China is still listed as an enemy of the United States. What did you guys figure out about the emergency meeting? Yeah, it looks like Fury said the only emergency meeting was yesterday, not today. The main thing about Paul was that he had a major dispute with James over what laws the Gentiles were to follow as opposed to the Jews. He said he was sent to teach the Gentiles. He also hated to baptize, preferring to focus on preaching. He preferred to send others to do the baptizing. I can relate. Yeah. All right, moving on. Red states follow Trump's model, seek to rid Islamic influence in local lawmaking. Awesome. Truth Social, Trump Army. Things Democrats have in 2026. No solutions, no policies, no integrity, no leadership, no talent, no hope, no joy. Whoops. No joy, no love for America. Boy, ain't that the truth. Yeah, what is it with that? What is it with the Democrats that are so anti-patriotic now? It used to be that the Democrats and the Republicans at least had patriotism to get, in common. Uh-oh. Did my screen lock up? Go back. Oh, it opened in a new screen. Okay, so he's posting memes now. Donald Trump is now ranked among the top 3 presidents in U.S. history. Do you agree with this ranking? I would say probably yes. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Donald Trump. What order would you put them in? They all did amazingly unique things that were important for George Washington with establishing our country, Abraham Lincoln with bringing the country together and stopping the slave trade. Anytime you have, and it's funny, so many of these presidents put their lives on the line to where in the face of extreme opposition, I wonder if you would consider them to be like prophets. Interesting thought. All right, Trump is without a doubt the greatest president we have ever known. Am I in a thread? Sometimes I feel like I'm in a thread. Nope, it's not a thread. He's just posting memes. He's tormenting people. Anytime he stokes his own horn, it torments. The greatest versus the worst. True. Can confirm. Things are moving along nicely for America's 250th birthday. Is this implying that he's having his face carved into Mount Rushmore? That's hilarious. The greatest of all time, the GOAT. That's the GOAT. GOAT. I used to think Trump was just a great president, but after watching the media, the FBI, and the entire system unite against one man, I realized something. You don't get attacked like that unless you're a threat. That's when I knew he's the greatest of all time. The GOAT. How many of these did he post? The GOAT. Thank God for Trump. Amen. build the ballroom. Presidente came and go, but he will be forever remembered as the GOAT. He's like a kid who just learned what that means, what goat means. Donald Trump is now ranked. Okay, saw that one. Start arresting poll workers that cheated in elections and watch how fast they'll tell you who told them to cheat. Fair point. CNN poll, Trump surpasses Ronald Reagan as most beloved president among Republicans. Oh yeah, Ronald Reagan, I guess he was quite popular as well. Trump, the real deal, a true American badass. What the heck? All right, okay, good. We got one more. He's the only person I trust in DC now. I'm a Trumplican. Yeah, fair enough. Excellent poll numbers. Thank you. All right. I love Justice Neil Gorsuch. He's a really smart and a good man, but he voted against me and our country on tariffs, a devastating move. How do I reconcile this? So bad and hurtful to our country. I have likewise always liked and respected Amy Coney Barrett. But the same thing with her. They were appointed by me and yet have hurt our country so badly. I do not believe they meant to do so, but their decision on tariffs cost the United States $159 billion that we have to pay back to enemies and people, companies, and countries that have been ripping us off for years. It's hardly believable. They could have solved the situation with a tiny sentence. Any money paid by others to the United States does not have to be paid back. Why wouldn't they have done so? With certain Republican-nominated justices that we have on the Supreme Court, the Democrats don't really need to pack the court any longer. In fact, I should be the one wanting to pack the court. I'm working so hard to make America great again, and then people that I appointed have shown so little respect to our country and its people. What is the reason for this? They have to do the right thing, but it's really okay for them to be loyal to the person that appointed them to almost the highest position in the land. That is, a justice of the United States Supreme Court. Democrat justices always remain true to the people that honored them for that very special nomination. They don't waver, no matter how good or bad a case may be. But Republican justices often go out of their way to oppose me because they want to show how independent or above it all they are. I got elected in a landslide, including winning the popular vote, all 7 swing states, and electoral college clobbering, and all U.S. counties by 86%, 2,750 to 525. I choose people to help our country, not to hurt it. And now, based on what I witnessed recently by being the first president in history to attend a Supreme Court session, which fact was not even recognized or acknowledged out of respect for the position of president by the court, something which did not go unnoticed by the fake news media. They will be ruling against us on birthright citizenship, making us the only country in the world that practices this unsustainable, unsafe, and incredibly costly disaster. I don't want loyalty, but I do want and expect it for our country. Yes, I have another way of doing tariffs, but it is far slower and more laborious than what was just determined, and a close decision to be illegal or unconstitutional, with 3 powerful and highly accurate dissents. Well, maybe Neil and Amy just had a really bad day. But our country can only handle so many decisions of that magnitude before it breaks down and cracks. Sometimes decisions have to be allowed to use good, strong common sense as a guide. A negative ruling on birthright citizenship on top of the recent Supreme Court tariff catastrophe is not economically sustainable for the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump. Wow. Man, that was detailed. Talk about just pouring out your heart. I don't know if he wrote that, but sure as hell sounds like maybe he did. Sorry, I just smashed my dog's butt. Dogs. They want to be close to their humans. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like that was written by him. That was just like a pouring out of the heart. Like, I mean, he literally, he just starts. I love Neil Gorsuch. Gorsuch. And even Amy. Wow. The magnificent ballroom under construction and ahead of schedule at the White House. President Donald J. Trump. You could listen to Fox News all day long, absolutely devour it. But then when you hear sleazebags like Congressman Ro Khanna, a wolf in sheep's clothing, lie, 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 and lie again, without any pushback or competent rebuttal from an anchor, in this case, Jackie Heinrich, the entire common sense dialogue that has been going on all day at Fox is completely obliterated. Why would Fox put scum like this on or others? Such a low-rated Bill Maher, who gains credibility by constant referral to him as though he were a liberal source of wisdom, or a very low IQ Hakeem Jeffries, who considers the Supreme Court illegitimate and probably hates our country. No matter how fair and balanced the day's news at Fox may be, the end result is destroyed by professional liars, conmen, and liberal crooked politicians. This is why MAGA Republicans, who are actually close to 100% of the party, hate Fox, despite the wonderful contributions made by so many of their great anchors and commentators. Hard to win elections like this. President Donald J. Trump. Fire from the mouth. The radical left Democrats must fail. Our country is at stake. President Donald J. Trump. Trump wipes out establishment Republicans in Indiana Senate primaries. Most Trump-backed challengers beat Indiana incumbents who bucked Trump. Trump makes Indiana Republicans pay for opposing redistricting. Man, to be on the opposite side, like to not support him, I can imagine you probably feel beaten down finally. He's really kicking butt. Kingmaker in chief. Trump-backed candidate steamrolls rivals across Indiana, Ohio. Trump-backed Republicans win big in Indiana. That's a repost of Neil Gorsuch. Okay. Any money paid to the United States of America does not have to be paid back. That sentence, if added by the Supreme Court to its highly disputed tariff decision, would have saved America $159 billion. Take it out of their pay. The radical left lunatics must fail. Our country is at stake. It feels like, with what Donald Trump is doing, it really feels like we're transitioning from the beast from the sea. So if you look at Revelation 13, there are two types of governments listed there. The beast from the sea, which is made up of 7 different nations. At least that's what it seems like it's saying, because the sea is defined as people, nations, languages, and tongues. I guess are the same thing, languages and tongues. People, nations, and tongues. I believe that's in Revelation 14 or 17 that defines that. And then you have the beast from the land, which seems as though it's more like a kingdom. There is an indication that both might exist simultaneously, considering the way that it says power is granted in the presence of, one beast gets the power while in the presence of the other beasts. But it seems as though what it is that Donald Trump is doing is moving us towards that second beast. Now, I'm not saying that he's part of it or that you should count that as evil towards him. But he but he seems to be a facilitator for the tools and for the things that Jesus is using during this period of time to transition the world towards the kingdom of God. And I do use Jesus's name there because what's happening now is attributed to him, right? So you have the book of Revelation, which is the revelation that God gave to Jesus, which he gave to his disciples, and then sent and signified it by an angel to his servant John. That's Revelation 1:1. And when he's open in Revelation 6, it says, or Revelation 5, it's the Lamb who was found worthy to take the scroll, which is interesting because Zechariah 5 implies that the scroll might be a curse. What's interesting is, the Lamb was found worthy to take the scroll and to start to open its seals. And when you look at the seals, it kind of reinforces the idea that the sealed scroll is a curse, which I guess if you just look at a curse as a change from one thing to another, well, no, that's not even really a good definition of a curse. Because it says the curse goes into the house of the thieves and the perjurers. So maybe rather than curse, you look at it as justice taking place, but there it causes great tribulation, because that's really what's happening. Is you've got evil being dealt with finally, and the curse is going into the homes of the thieves and perjurers, and we're seeing that with whatever they throw at Trump, nothing sticks. God clearly has his back. He is divinely protected. Although it was clear that he couldn't win, the previous administration, that needed to go to Biden. These actions, these things are being facilitated, I would argue, by Jesus, because he's the one who's opening the seals. Well, it's probably him who's is I don't know, sanctifying, or what confuses me is he's accredited with opening the seals, but if they're marked in time by eclipses, one of two things needs to be true. Either we don't understand what it means for him to open the seal. It could just be a figure of speech saying that it could be attributed to him in some way, whether he has a choice in it or not, or it could indicate that there could have been different options for when he could start these events. I guess we won't know that answer until he returns, but it is attributed to him. The Lamb is the one who opens the seals. Is it? I don't know. Maybe there could be some wording that implies that maybe he's the one who takes the scrolls and is worthy to open it. And then once he takes it, maybe the seals. Here, let's go read. Now I'm curious what the actual wording is in Revelation. Oops. Revelation, what is it, 6? Now when I saw the Lamb opened one of the seals. Yeah, it says that he's actually credited with opening. Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. I don't know. Take with that. So there's a couple different options that you could go with that. Because it's so weird. Because the visual imagery is that, like, maybe it's a piece of wax that's sealing the scroll, and he's like breaking it. Anyway, the point being is that it's attributed to him, which is so interesting, because I've talked around this so much I forgot my original point. Anyway, it's interesting to see how Donald Trump is the one who's like setting I remember I was talking about the transition from the beast of the sea to the beast of the land. So even Donald Trump, he was responsible for Operation Warp Speed, which ended up being used as a weapon on the whole world. But the evil of it wasn't attributed to him. It was it should be attributed to the Biden administration, because that was handed to the rider on the red horse, who then proceeded to use it. So it's almost as though this period of time is allowing people to hang themselves. It's the I imagine it's the tests and trials that are coming on the whole world. So they're putting everybody through these situations, through these tests to find out who you really are. I felt like I went through a severe tests. Some of you may know my wife kicked me out. We went through, severe trials and tests at one point in time. And we came back together and are stronger than we've ever been before. So it could just be a matter of associating to Jesus the trials and tests that are coming on the whole world. And, Trump is a facilitator. And it seems as though right now he's facilitating this transition to something else, right? With going after Iran, protecting the U.S. dollar. It's almost like he's getting it prepared for that beast from the land to take power. And I know people are going to point to Trump and say, see, he's the Antichrist, he's evil. I don't look at it that way. It seems to me more like he's the hand of God facilitating these things because we know they have to come to pass. They're written about, God. It's like nothing we say or do is going to stop these things from happening. They are going to happen. And it seems as though he's playing a key role in facilitating that. That's for sure. Anyway, tangent off. I have just read the response from Iran's so-called representatives. I don't like it. Totally unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. All right. The sleazebag radical left congressman from the failed state of California, Ro Khanna, should not be allowed on Fox News unless you have an anchor who is capable of disputing his lies one after another and closing down his fake bullshit narrative. He is similar but worse than Hakeem Jeffries, only with a somewhat higher IQ. This morning he tried on behalf of the Democrats to take credit for the steel industries pouring back into the U.S., knowing full well that the Dumbs virtually destroyed it and I saved it through strong tariffs, plus our country was dead during the last administration, and now it is hotter than ever before. We can't allow the Democrats to take credit for this. If elected, they will fully destroy our thriving and now very respected nation. I will not let that happen. President Donald J. Trump. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. We just secured the release of 3 Polish and 2 Moldovan prisoners from Belarusian and Russian detention. Thanks to my skeptical presidential envoy, John Cole, we were able to push hard to make this release happen. My friend President Karol Nawrocki of Poland met with me last September and asked me to help secure and I can't pronounce this, Andrzej Pakzobot from the Belarusian prison. Today, Pakzobot is free due to our efforts. The United States delivers for our allies and friends. Thank you. Thank you to President Alexander Lukashenko for his cooperation and friendship. President Donald J. Trump. Very cool. All federal agencies must buy American. No excuses for decades. Washington politicians sent your taxpayer dollars overseas and let foreign countries rip us off while our workers, factories, and supply chains were left behind. That betrayal is over. My administration is strengthening Made in America laws, ending waiver loopholes, and stopping the federal government from buying foreign products when great American products are available. And to the D.C. bureaucrats, no more handing out waivers like candy. No more rubber stamping exceptions for foreign products while American workers get shafted. We are putting American workers, American factories, and American supply chains first, bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. I already signed Executive Order 14392 to crack down on fake Made in America claims, and we are enforcing it hard. No more games, no more fake labels, no more ripping off American taxpayer. American first means buy American. President Donald J. Trump. Okay. Palestinian Chuck Schumer. What? Palestinian Chuck Schumer is hiring Eric Holder. Okay. Famous for handing guns to Mexican cartels under the Barack Hussein Obama administration as part of a Democrat-led election integrity group that will no doubt try to suppress Republican voters and interfere in our elections. Furthermore, Mark Elias, a terrible lawyer with a horrible track record, is also involved. This is the same disgusting individual who is responsible for fake Russia dossier from a foreign nation to meddle in the 2016 election, which I won in a historic fashion. The Democrats are totally unhinged, and we will not allow them to threaten integrity of our elections. During my historic election in 2024, when I won every single swing state and decisively won both the electoral and popular votes by wide margins, the Republicans had an election integrity army in every single state to preserve the sanctity of each legal vote. We will be doing the same again in 2026, but it will be much bigger and stronger. All Americans should have their voices be heard by casting a vote. Be assured this election will be fair. President Donald J. Trump. Okay. Something from Mark Levin.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday. Welcome to the program. You know, President Trump has done something no president dared to do in the last half century. He, with our ally Israel and their great Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has destroyed the Iranian regime's military, the immediate nuclear threat, and most of the missile systems which were used to terrorize surrounding nations. If I told you that would have been accomplished in a few days, or even a few weeks, you wouldn't have believed me. And yet, for some reason, we act like this hasn't been a spectacular military success.
True.
That said, the knowledge on how to develop nuclear weapons and ICBMs, along with assistance from countries like China, Russia, and North Korea, and the internal militia and security forces of Iran, seem to ensure that sometime in the future, Iran will be able to reconstruct these weapons systems, rebuild its military, and internally increase its mass murder of even the most peaceful voices of dissent. So what do you do after you defeat an enemy's military and take out the top tier of their leadership? What do you do? Because that's where we are. Well, let's first look at what we said we will not do. No ground troops. Why? Because there's virtually no political will in our country to send ground troops into Iran. And I would argue there's no need to send in our ground troops, for reasons I'll explain in a moment. President Trump has not only led a historic military victory against Iran, but he has asserted control over the Strait of Hormuz, thereby controlling Iran's ability to sell its oil and choke the Iranian economy in hopes of forcing the regime to make a deal or collapse. Those are two very distinct objectives: to make a deal or collapse. So the question is, which is preferable? So let's dig into this further. If the goal is to take down the regime, two of three most important conditions have already been achieved: the destruction of virtually its entire military capacity and economic control over their economy. These are two historic successes on their own. If the goal is to get a deal, the issue is not only what kind of deal, but can the deal stick? That is, how do we know if the enemy will adhere to the terms of a deal, especially after President Trump leaves office? Well, let's look at the Iranian regime's record.
Yeah, we don't really need to look at their record. Let's see what this one is.
We don't have to create opposition. There is opposition. We need to seize the opportunity. And we need to see the opportunity. And by that I mean that our CIA, along with the Israeli Mossad, make determinations about the best way to determine who to train and arm, while at the same time we continue the economic stranglehold, and our military, along with our allies, the Israelis, provide coordinated support with targeted and supportive attacks on the IRGC and the Basij paramilitary police. That's, in my view, how you do it. Well, Mark, you never served in the military. I know history. I know history. Nobody alive ever served in the Civil War either. Nobody alive ever served in the Revolutionary War either. That's not the point. You do leave it to the experts to figure this out. But the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, he makes the decisions. And I look at history. I look at success. Success in destroying the Soviet Union. Success in pushing communism out of Central and South America. And we did this. Success in pushing communism out of parts of Africa. Success in pushing the Russians, the Soviets, out of Afghanistan. We didn't send in troops. We armed the freedom fighters, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you know, our country needs to rely more on its people. I think that's one of the things that makes the U.S. so uninvadable. For one, is, you know, there's a certain level of trust in the American people, especially when you have a government for the people, by the people. I was looking at the arms, how many weapons per 1,000 people? Yeah, how many guns per how many guns per 100 people throughout the world. And surprisingly, it's pretty consistent with, you know, the bigger countries where, like, you know, places like Australia, it's like 30 guns per 100 people. Not too bad. But like Russia, it's only like 50 guns per 100 people. But in America, it's 120 guns per 100 people. So there's clearly a higher trust in the actual people. There has to be, because we're really well armed. But yeah, I mean, like, that's how you win, is you trust people. Anyway, let's move on from here. Oh, what we got here? Rubio meets the Pope.
Let's bring in Fox News contributor and pastor of First Baptist Church, Robert Jeffress. Pastor Jeffress, great to have you on. So I want to get your take here. The Vatican put out a statement, and they said that there was an exchange of views. We don't know what exactly that means, but they exchanged some views. Give me your take about this public criticism from really both sides.
Yeah. Look, I think it's commendable that the Trump administration is meeting with the Pope and trying to work with the Pope. The Pope is a good man. He's sincere in his faith, but he is sincerely wrong when it comes to Iran. The Pope ought to know, and I think he does know, God created both the church and government for two distinct purposes. The role of the church is to point people to faith in Jesus Christ, but the role of government is to protect citizens from evildoers, according to Romans 13. And look, 3 days after this conflict began, I was in the Oval Office with President Trump and a few other faith leaders, and he told us that Iran was within weeks of getting a powerful weapon that would destroy Israel, much of the Middle East, and could bring great harm to America, and he had no choice but to act. And I thanked him then for having the courage to fulfill his God-given responsibility to protect our nation. And you know, the great irony is it looks like President Trump has a better understanding of what the Bible teaches about the role of government than the Pope has. Okay. And I'm glad the president hasn't backed down at all.
Okay, I got to ask you about this, Pastor. I can't believe I'm asking you about this, but as you know, the federal government, under the authority of President Trump, just released a lot of UFO files. And apparently the Department of War, when they launched this on their website, got 340 million hits in just 12 hours. A lot of people are very interested to know if there's other life out there. An article came out this week saying that religious leaders apparently were told to prepare now for UFO disclosure to unleash Bible-changing revel. And it says an evangelist A Bible teacher and author from Tennessee warned that fellow pastors were recently invited to a secret meeting with U.S. intelligence officials to prepare for the release of secret files on extraterrestrials. And he said you're going to have people who are going to say if there are galaxies and there are allegedly other creations in the galaxies, then the whole creation story is a myth. So first of all, was there a...
You either believe God is omnipotent and omniscient or you don't. If he's omnipotent and omniscient, everywhere present, and he's, yeah, I mean, like, we know the galaxy is huge, right? This is why I say that people underestimate how big God is. It's like the difference between underestimating the difference between a million and a billion. A million, if you were to take, so how does this represent it? So 1,000,000 seconds equals 11 days. However, 1,000,000,000 seconds is like 31.5 years. There's a massive leap. This is why I get frustrated when people say that, the earth is billions and billions of years old, 13 point whatever billions. It's like you don't even comprehend what it is that you're saying. That number is so far beyond what the way you're portraying it. You're saying it as though it's, 10 to 15 weeks. But it's basically just whenever I hear people use the word billions in terms of like age, I just count them to not know what the heck they're talking about. But it's the same thing with the universe. It's so unfathomably, it's huge. It's massive. So if God is everywhere present, it doesn't mean that he's limited to the earth. It means he's everywhere, meaning he's got to be everywhere in the universe too. So sure, it makes sense that there would be life elsewhere. How else do you explain the angels? How else do you, explain how the universe is so fitly joined together? There's so much that we need to learn. There's so many assumptions that need to be dashed down. And it really seems like, those things are starting to come to pass finally. But yeah, I hope he doesn't talk about this alien deception. I'm getting so frustrated listening to these idiots talk about that this alien disclosure is the great deception. I don't believe that at all. Not if you believe the scripture, what the scripture says, because the scripture says that when Christ returns to gather together the elect, the entire world sees it. And there's an acknowledgement and a fear of the one who sits on the throne. So in the same way that they make up the story about the Antichrist, they're making up the story about this quote unquote alien deception. From my perspective, it's more of a disclosure that we're not alone in the universe. And that shouldn't shake anybody's faith. If anything, it should confirm it. What do you think angels are? They're human-like creatures. It's said in scripture that, the reason that you're you should be hospitable is because people have entertained angels unaware, meaning that either they can change shapes or else they look like us, which makes sense because, Garden of Eden and all that stuff, genetic compatibility for making the Nephilim. Anyway, that's a story for another day.
Secret meeting, Pastor. And what do you say to people who are wondering, okay, if there's aliens out there, what does that say about my faith?
Well, I guess my invitation got lost in the mail. I certainly wasn't there at that B&B in Tennessee or wherever it took place. But look, if it was discovered that there is life on other planets, it would not shake my...
I have a video to show you about this. Since they released the files, we've already discovered what this is. You're going to love it.
Faith at all. There's nothing in the Bible that precludes life on other planets. When it comes to the Bible, people need to remember the Bible tells us everything we need to know. Everything the Bible tells us is true, but the Bible doesn't tell us everything. And when I think about creation, I think of Colossians 1:16. Jesus Christ created all things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. All things were created by...
He's inserting words in the scripture. He's not quoting the scripture. He's heavily modifying the scripture.
by him and for him. And if that all things includes life on other planets, so what? It's the same God who created them, who created us. And the most important thing in life is to be in a right relationship with that God who made us all.
Wow, that's surprising. So you're leaving the door open, Pastor, to potential
Yes.
alien. Do you believe that there are aliens out there? What's your personal take?
I don't know. I doubt it. But I think it's normal to doubt it because we're so confined to this world. And the truth is,
I wonder why so many people doubt that there's life in elsewhere in the universe. We're going to watch a video today about Chase Hughes, how he did a 5-hour session on DMT. I don't know if you've seen these videos on DMT, but it's very interesting, and I think it'll encourage some interesting conversations. But I've never understood why people have such an issue with there potentially being life elsewhere in the universe. Like I said, do you believe God is everywhere? Do you believe he's big? Or are you constraining what you believe God to be down to something small and tiny? To me, God is unfathomably large.
our planet, our galaxy is like a grain of sand on the Sahara Desert compared to the vastness of this universe. We serve a great God, a creative God who can do whatever he chooses to do.
And every single day we find...
He cannot lie, though. All right, we should move on. We spent an hour on Donald Trump. Let's move on to Elon Musk. And then we'll move on to... Actually, before we do Elon, we might as well show this video since it's in context. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but since they just showed this video. Remember Ray? We haven't visited Ray in a while. This is Ray. He thinks he discovered what this is. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. I think he's correct. So let's listen to what he thinks it is.
If you take a look at that, look at this, it's bent now, right? It's a paraglider. Somebody is driving this like a motor, like they wear this machine, paragliding, right? I can put a footage there for you.
Yeah.
But so it's basically they are flying this paraglider, and that's what is going on. It is showing the...
Yeah, and that's what it would look like if you had a FLIR infrared camera, because the heat is on the back of the pilot, and it's very common for them to get thrown around by the wind. But that very much doesn't look like a paraglider.
Ribbon on the top, the parachute on the top.
Yeah, see, he shows
They are flying on top of it. This infrared sensor, very clearly, this is how paraglider behaves. When you fly the paraglider, you will have, and that is what that I have. Look at that.
I don't know. It could still be some kind of a spacecraft, but I think he has a strong case for it being a paraglider.
It's literally a paraglider. I don't think I have any question. I don't need to debunk this lot more than this. You can download the video yourself and you can look at it. You can Google for the link and look at yourself.
It looks like a paraglider that's being thrown around by the wind.
So going back to this data.
Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you from that. So this is one of the cool things about with the government, and this is one of the things they noted, is they hope that people would do exactly this, help us identify what's happening in these videos, because we don't know what's happening. So he's doing exactly what they were hoping would happen. Now, granted, more people wanted, aliens and spaceship. I have a feeling that in the next release, probably it's interesting, just the timing of it all. I imagine that it's going to get more and more concrete. Like when they release like the different entities, or alien life forms, the reports and the witnesses and what they know about them, it's probably going to get more and more concrete. And I don't think, I guess there are probably some people out there that it might shake their faith to where I don't know. To me, it's more concrete evidence. If anything, maybe it shatters the illusion. Might be a better way of looking at it. Maybe by showing that there is life in the universe, that there are different races, those who don't know the scripture, and the churches that have not been teaching the scripture but have been teaching their prescribed, doctrine to keep people paying their tithe, funding the church. It may cause some disruption with those people because they may not have been taught about the watchers. They may not understand that angels, may not be, exactly human, but they are human-like. So for the government to release information that they're aware of other, beings that are similar to human, all that would do is confirm that the watchers are real, and it would start to shed light on what happened in the Garden of Eden and reinforce why Jesus needed to be born, why he needed to be born from a virgin, so that he had pure blood. It wasn't a mixture of any kind, and how his sacrifice undid what it is that they did. And what's interesting is I think that there's might be some keys to understanding this in this video on DMT, which we'll talk about when we watch this video. So before we do that, though, let's go back to Elon Musk and see what he's got to say, to see if anything cool has happened on his timeline, and then we'll get into that video on DMT. All right, new pin post 4 hours ago. Launch rehearsal complete. During a flight-like countdown, more than 5,000 metric tons, or 11 million pounds of propellant were loaded. Were loaded on the fully stacked Starship and Super Heavy V3 vehicles for the first time. I imagine they got to look for leaks. Such hypocrisy from the rational animal. Same move, same hand on the heart, same wave to the crowd. Musk did it and gets called a Nazi to this day. Mamdani does it, and those same people have not said a word. Well, not exactly. Once the side-by-side clips went viral. Such hypocrisy, yeah. It's because they want to hate him. He torments them. I got flipped off yesterday by a little, 7 to 8 year old. The parents are literally teaching their children the torment of Elon Musk. I mean, what reason would a 8-year-old child have to flip off somebody in a Tesla? I'm telling you, these two men torment the world. May Musk on Elon. He wants to leave the world in a better place than he found it. People often misunderstand Elon. He's not motivated by money or fame. He's motivated by the idea of improving humanity. Whether it's making electric cars mainstream, reducing the risk of human extinction through space exploration, or ensuring the free flow of information on platforms like X. His goal has always been the same, to leave the world in a better place than he found it. True. Can relate. Starship's cargo. Let's see. Remember how they lost their shit when Elon did this? Now it's suddenly my heart goes out to you and everyone's totally fine. It's another jab at Mamdani. In less than 24 hours, the long wait will be over. Suicidal Empathy, it will be released tomorrow. I think there's a chicken somewhere close by. You guys can hear that in the background. I live on a farm. Might be laying an egg. Why is it always seize the means of production and never create the means of production? Don't know exactly what that means. Jensen Huang, I was lucky. Here, we'll just listen to him.
And so we created this thing. I announced it at GTC and at one of our annual events. And I described this deep learning thing, computer vision thing, and this computer called DGX-1. The audience was completely silent. They had no idea what I was talking about.
We've heard this before. Elon was his only customer.
And I was lucky because I'd known Elon, and I helped him build the first computer for Model 3, the Model S. And when he wanted to start working on autonomous vehicle, I helped him build the computer that went into the Model S AV system, his full self-driving system. We were basically the FSD computer version 1. And so we're already working together. And when I announced this thing, nobody in the world wanted it. I had no purchase orders, not one. Nobody wanted to buy it. Nobody wanted to be part of it, except for Elon. He was at the event, and we were doing a fireside chat about the future of self-driving cars. I think it's like 2016. Yeah, maybe at that time it was 2015. And he goes, "You know what? I have a company that could really use this." And I said, "Wow, my first customer." And so I was pretty excited about it. And he goes, "Yeah, we have this company. It's a nonprofit company." And all the blood drained out of my face. Yeah. I just spent a few $1 billion building this thing. It cost $300,000. And, the chances of a nonprofit being able to pay for this thing is approximately 0. And he goes, "This is it's an AI company, and it's a nonprofit, and we could really use one of these supercomputers." And so I picked it up. I built the first one for ourselves. We're using it inside the company. I boxed one up. I drove it up to San Francisco, and I delivered it to Elon in 2016. A bunch of researchers were there. Peter Beal was there. Iliad was there. And there was a bunch of people there. And I walk up to the second floor where they were all kind of in a room, this smaller than your place here. And that place turned out to have been OpenAI. 2016.
Wow.
Just a bunch of people sitting in a room.
It's not really nonprofit anymore, though, is it?
They're not nonprofit anymore. Yeah.
Weird how that works.
Yeah. But anyhow, Elon was there. It was really a great moment. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's it.
Wow. Look at you, bro. Same jacket.
Look at that. I haven't aged.
I like Jensen. I don't know a whole lot about him. I've only what we've learned in the last year or two. But he takes a stand in the face of opposition, which I highly respect. He stands with the Jews, and it seems as though he listens to God, because for him to drop a couple $1 billion on a computer that nobody wanted, and then, God matches him up with Elon Musk, and today we have AI as a result of it all. It's just like, if you can't see the hand of God moving in that, you're not looking close enough. I like him. I think he's good people. May Musk on Elon's early days. Ooh, this will be good.
I knew he was a genius, and he was a good person, so I knew he would want to do something good. And when he started, of course, with his first company, Zip2, and I invested in that because I needed to keep them going, and then Kimball joined him, and then they sold, and funny enough, it was my 50th birthday party, and they gave me a little toy house and a little toy car, and they said, "We're going to give you one day." Meanwhile, we were all struggling, and we had my birthday party at an investor's home, and they brought the food in, my kids did, and I thought, "Oh, you are so cute." And they sold Zip2, and I got a home and I got a car. Yes.
Wow. Look at life.
I knew he was a genius.
So he's been making promises and keeping them ever since, even if they're a little late. That's cute for Happy Mother's Day. Appreciation to mothers everywhere who brought us all into the world and nurtured their beloved children. Everyone knows about the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae. Almost nothing they know is the full story. Oh man, I really want to read this, but it's so long. I've actually read this story when I was in college. It's such a good book. Start with a number. There weren't 300 Greeks at the pass. There were around 7,000 Spartans, Thesbians, Thebans, Phocians, Locians, Arcadians, Corinthians, citizen soldiers from across Greece who marched north knowing they'd be facing the largest army the ancient world had ever assembled. The 300 is just the headline, the ones who stayed to the end. Now, the men themselves, King Leonidas, wasn't some chiseled 30-year-old. He was roughly 60 years old when he led that march. And the 300 he picked weren't his strongest warriors. They were specifically men who already had living sons. Spartan law demanded it. Leonidas wasn't choosing an army. He was choosing men whose bloodlines could survive their deaths. Every one of them knew what that meant before they ever saw a Persian. They marched anyway. And they didn't march alone in the way movies suggest. Each Spartan citizen soldier was accompanied by helots, the enslaved underclass that propped up the entire Spartan economy. Outnumbering their masters roughly 7-1, hundreds of helots fought and died at Thermopylae too. They get no statues, no films, no name on the monument. Don't let the word slave throw you. Slave in ancient cultures meant it was closer to employee than to what we understand as slave. Indentured servitude usually meant that it was a mutual agreement that the slave would serve the master and the master would take care of the slave. An entirely different mentality about servitude. It's closer to an employee-employer relationship without the at will part. Because like once it was a sealed deal, they tend to last. Versus somebody who was enslaved against their will. The pass itself was barely 15 meters wide in 480 BC. It's silted up now and looks nothing like it did then. That bottleneck is the only reason a few thousand men could hold off a Persian force. Modern historians estimate at 70 to 300,000. Herodotus said 1.7 million. He was lying, or possibly counting cooks, slaves, and camp followers, but even the conservative number is staggering. For 2 days, they held, wave after wave, broke in against brawn and discipline. Xerxes reportedly leapt from his throne 3 times in fury watching his men die. He sent in the Immortals, his elite personal guard, supposedly invincible. They weren't, not in that pass. Then the Greeks were betrayed. A local man named Ephialtes, whose name still means nightmare in the modern Greek, sold the Persians a goat path. Sold the Persians a goat path through the mountains that flanked the pass. The Phoenicians, I want to say this is supposed to be Phoenicians, but it's Phocians. The Phocians assigned to guard it scattered when the Immortals appeared in the dawn fog. Leonidas knew by morning he was surrounded. He dismissed most of the allied Greek forces, saved their lives, but here's what almost nobody talked about. Roughly 700 Thespians, led by a man named Demophilus, refused to leave. They were citizen farmers from a small town that knew Persia was coming for them next no matter what. They chose to die beside the Spartans rather than run. About 400 Thesmans stayed too, though their motives were murkier and many surrendered when the end came. So the last stand of the 300 was actually closer to 1,500 men. The Thespians died to the last. Their town was burned to the ground by the Persians weeks later anyway. There a footnote. Oops. Dang it. I lost my place. They're a footnote in a story that should bear their name. The final fight happened on a small hill called Colonus. Spear shattered, swords broken. Herodotus, says they fought with hands and teeth at the end. Leonidas fell early, and the Spartans fought 4 times over his body to keep the Persians from taking it. They lost. Xerxes had Leonidas decapitated and his body crucified, a violation of Persian custom so extreme it tells you exactly how badly that old man had humiliated the King of Kings. 40 years later, Sparta sent a delegation to recover his bones and bring him home. 2 Spartans survived the battle. One, Aristodemus, had been sent away with an eye infection and returned to Sparta and was treated as a coward, shunned, refused fire, refused convention or conversation until he threw himself in the front line at Plataea a year later, and he died seeking redemption. The other survivor, Pantetes, was sent on a diplomatic errand and missed the fight. He hanged himself from the shame. Different mentality in those days, I guess. That's the world they lived in. The epitaph carved at the site doesn't brag. It doesn't even mention victory because there wasn't one. Roughly translated, it just asks the traveler to tell Sparta that her sons died here, obedient to her laws. A small group of farmers, an old king, an enslaved underclass, written out of history, and a town that vanished from the map. Together for 3 days in August of 480 BC, they did the math on freedom and decided the price was worth it. We remember 300 of them. There were always more. That was worth reading. Ancient History Hub. Worth reading because Elon reposted it. All right, another Mother's Day. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day flowers. Love them. Oh, here's the famous "My heart goes out to you," which they of course the left acknowledges that it means "my heart goes out to you," but if Elon does it, it means it's the Nazi salute. Funny how they change their perspective depending on who's doing it. Being a mom is just as important as any career. Oh, very cool. Happy Mother's Day. Appreciation of mothers everywhere who brought us all into the world and nurtured their beloved children. Perhaps a restoration of dignity is in order. Am I in a thread? I feel like I'm in a thread. Nope. He just didn't post very much. Woke mind virus destroys beauty, art, and everything you truly love, and that is worth loving, all in the name of fake empathy. This is the foundation of my philosophy. I'm curious about the nature of the universe, and absolutely I will die, but I would like to know that we are on a path to understanding the nature of the universe and the meaning of life, and what questions to ask about the answer. That is the universe. Sounds to me like he's on a path to understand God. There is all the difference in the world between takers and makers. Production never even crosses their mind. Like parasites, socialists exist solely to take and consume, never to create and contribute. Oh, that's Thomas Sowell, huh? Socialists have a remarkable lack of interest in how wealth is created. As far as they know, wealth just exists somehow, and the only interesting question is how to redistribute it. Okay. All right, what do we got here?
Just your point, Lee. Elon Musk has deserved every single penny of the money he's made. Jeff Bezos,
absolutely not. That is the most
yes,
ludicrous statement you have ever made. They are making money off the American taxpayer, off the American government, after deals with SpaceX.
Bigger.
I don't know why you're shilling for these people. It's nuts.
It has made our standard of living, because capitalism has a moral argument that needs to be defended. It has made our standard of living better than any other group of people in any other time. And I would say, I want
standard of living, Lydia?
Elon Musk,
Whose standard of living?
A trillionaire, because guess what? Okay. With his money, he's literally letting blind people see. He's letting paralyzed people walk. I want him to have the money, not Elizabeth Warren, who's going to funnel it to fraud.
He's letting blind people see and paralyzed people walk. What are we doing?
Have you heard of Neuralink?
I can't stand CNN. I can't stand these round tables. Stupid people.
Have you heard of Neuralink? Does it work, babe?
Lydia's point about capitalism.
My God, this is so freaking insane.
Hold on, Lee. Lydia's point about capitalism being a vehicle.
That's your point, Lee.
Wow. Nazi National Socialist Party, Nazi National Socialist Party, Nazi National Socialist Party. True. We should have much lower tolerance for the Nepo baby communists. They might seem too incompetent to be dangerous, but they are repopularizing the most dangerous ideology of all time. True. Communism killed some 100 million people. Remember when Kyle Rittenhouse randomly shot a group of liberals and 2/3 of the people he hit were pedophiles? Every time I see another liberal spurging out about Rittenhouse, this immediately pops into my head. That's hilarious. Yep.
Having watched Musk very up close for a couple of years, I'm going to say something that you might think is naive, but I really believe it, which is he has certain missions he's had his whole life. He read Isaac Asimov. He read the Robot series. He thought the robots might turn on us. I have to come in and save us from hostile AI. I have to make us multiplanetary. Having watched Musk very up close for a couple of years.
So Walter Isaacson spent 2 years watching Elon Musk up close and revealed something profound, his deep care for humanity. So this has got to be, so both, this is what's interesting about both Donald Trump and Elon Musk is they both seem to have a deep care for humanity. I can't imagine at this point, can you? I can't imagine anyone else being the anointed ones who stand before the Lord of the whole earth in this day and time right now. Like, I'm all for people breathing fire, but it wouldn't surprise me if they don't start breathing fire. You know what I mean? Like, right now, it could be said that they're the fire from their mouth and the way that they speak. But, yeah, I can't imagine anyone else who would fit what little we know about the two witnesses. It's funny. It's so interesting how it just angers people. Like that gal from CNN, that looks spiritual. Like that is somebody who's visibly, look at that, who is just visibly shaken by this idea. Like, you can tell she gets really.
Lydia's point about Lydia's point.
I mean, like, this is why I don't like debates. Torment. That's what Torment looks like right there. All right, moving on. We're pretty much done here. I think we're getting close to, I mean, this is Saturday, right? What do we got going on here?
I have a chip that was implanted onto my skull, and there are 64 threads with 16 electrodes on each thread. I think that's about right. Implanted in my motor cortex on my left side of my brain, specifically correlating to my right hand movement. Obviously, I can't really move, but all the signals are still there. When we did an fMRI, it's just what lit up most on the scans. And so now I can control the computer with my thoughts. That's kind of the very basic level of it all. Video games came first. It was something that I had a passion.
So I feel like I need to interject here. There's a lot of people who think Neuralink is the mark of the beast, or they think that the mark of the beast is going to be some kind of a microchip, and they assume that because Neuralink goes in the head, and there's so many people that hate Elon Musk, that surely either him or Donald Trump are the Antichrist, and this is going to be the mark of the beast. But this has to be some kind of a test for people, because I almost wonder when you step back and you look at like the way people are being tested right now, is it seems as though it's testing people's assumptions and the way they think, and who they are as a result of the way they think. So like people who don't really know the scripture but are teaching the scripture as if they do know, but what they're doing is they're just repeating the stories. It's some of these people would stake their lives on it. It's mind-boggling. Like when they're teaching about the Antichrist, or when they use the word Antichrist. Like, seriously, I encourage you, go study that word. I used to believe that the Antichrist was going to go into the temple and declare himself God. I used to believe that story not too long ago. One of these days I'll find the video and show you just to prove it. But when you start to really look at the scripture and read it to understand, and when you look at that word Antichrist, it's got specific attributes, none of which apply to a dude going into the temple declaring himself God. But the same thing here is like, you know, people are under the assumption that the mark of the beast is going to be something technological because it prevents you from buying and selling. There's these narratives that people tell and repeat to one another that it's going to control who you are. It's going to, it's going to take over. It's going to force you this, that, and the other. Well, the thing about Neuralink is he said specifically it goes into the motor cortex of his brain, and they put it into the part that lit up the most, so that because those areas were still firing, it just wasn't, the signal wasn't making it to his hand. So basically what they did is they tapped into those signals so that he could, by thinking, could remotely control a mouse. Now, it does not have complete access to his brain, and the only reason why it works is because it's him thinking about what he would do with his hand. So it's, in essence, they've replaced his hand with technology, and it's so close to what people are thinking, like because it goes into the brain, that people are just making that leap, and they're making these false claims like, oh, that's the mark of the beast. And they're almost using it as fuel, especially those who are tormented. They're almost using it as like fuel for reasons to hate Elon Musk. And I think therein is that trial of separation. It would not surprise me if everything that's going on right now isn't being observed and recorded. Who you are and how you respond to these things, and you're going to be held to account. Number one, there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth, because people who don't truly want to know the truth. They just want to support their fantasies. There's going to come a day when that fantasy is broken, and there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The way whoever you think you are, whatever you think the makes up the world and the way things are, that for some people that fantasy is going to be shattered, and there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I hate to say that, but that's what's written in the scripture. My heart is that everybody is saved, because Jesus said, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Like, he gave his son to save the world. But that doesn't mean people are going to be are not going to be seriously disappointed when their fantasies are destroyed and shattered. And one of them is this idea of the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast seems far more likely, more like what it is, more like a religion or a doctrine of what you believe. That's what the mark of the beast seems more like. And yeah, anyway, before we go down that rabbit hole, let's continue.
Passion for before my accident. I had a lot of fun playing games. It's one of the first things that I did after I got full control of the Neuralink. I just played video games for hours, and it was great. But over the years, not having spent a lot of time playing video games for 8 years, I quickly moved on to other things, how I could improve my life, what I could do now that I couldn't before. Controlling a computer, I think a lot of people take for granted what they're able to do, what they can do with just a computer. For me, it became reconnecting with the world in some way, whether that's through social media or texting or emailing. I just was reconnecting with my friends and family and people who I had never met, doing interviews and all sorts of things, and I was scheduling everything. And then moving on to starting a business, and then going back to school. I had my injury couple months after my senior year of college, and I was a terrible student then, so I didn't finish my degree, but I decided to go back to school. So last semester was my first time back. I took 22 credit hours. I got a 4.0, so I was much more capable than, like I said, I thought I was.
Very cool. Very cool. What's interesting about this is what should be viewed as a miracle, something that gives, people who were previously incapable the ability to be productive and provide value, should be looked at as a miracle. And whatever it is that causes people to think evil about, it's their beliefs. If you think about it, if they believe that Elon Musk is the Antichrist, and they believe that Neuralink is the mark of the beast, you're thinking evil. That's going to change the way who you are and what you believe. So they're looking at something that should be looked at as a miracle that's allowing somebody to provide value, and they're looking at it as though this is some evil thing. So it's yeah, I don't know about you, but we're full on living in the tests, the trials that are coming up that are. I think we're living through that part. So where it says, where it says we'll be kept from the trials coming on the whole earth, I think there's just those of us who have been kept from so many of these things. Right? Why Elon Musk's Hitler was a socialist post holds up under scrutiny. Let's see, this morning Elon Musk posted on X, Hitler was a socialist, therefore all socialists are Hitler. Senator Mike Lee amplified the substance of the claim with a sharper formulation, namely that fascism and Nazism are not the opposite of socialism, as the modern left would have you believe, but are themselves socialism. Musk reposted Lee. The reaction from the drive-by media and even Grok was prompt and uniform. Fascism, we were told, belongs to the right. Socialism belongs to the left. To suggest otherwise is to deny every serious historian supposedly knows. Hitler was a socialist. Okay. The reaction is strong, or at least far too confident. The question is, how long is this? Oh, this is way too long to read. I would like to read it. I think that's interesting, but we'll just leave it at Hitler was a socialist. All right. What do we got? Right. Wow. Socialism, communism, and fascism aren't exactly the same. The similarities far outweigh the differences. Both systems feature authoritarian, totalitarian leadership. State trumps religion. The collective trumps the individual. Centralized economic planning, widespread death and suffering. I choose freedom instead. America first. Fascism and communism are not two opposites, but two rival gangs fighting over the same territory. Both are variants of statism based on the collectivism principle. Man, this stuff is just too smart for me. Principle that man is the rightless slave of the state. Ayn Rand. Shorter version, fascism is not and has never been right-wing. Okay. How iconic and dependent on the model you... Okay, I'm tired of the socialism stuff. Hitler, Marx, Mao, Stalin, Mussolini were all socialists. Another thing... Really? Can we just get off the Hitler thing? Fascism. Kids should be taught this the same time they're taught about Hitler. They aren't. Now we have clueless adults. This is by design. Political spectrum, left and right. This is basically describing whatever all these previous posts were describing about the left and the right. Political spectrum. I don't think I'm in Elon's post anymore. How do we get out? Yeah, we're down here. Suicidal Empathy is currently #1 across all books. Pre-order it now. Let's get it to #1. All right. That is Friday. All right, let's move on. This is a cool video. So this is this video. Nope, this video. Nope. Well, this is the video of him talking about Trump getting back with... Here, we can watch this while I go get the Chase video. He's got some... Start when he starts reading this article. There.
$10 million donation in Kentucky Senate race to destroy Mitch McConnell's legacy, a beautiful thing. And they ain't done yet. Just announced, ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk will be joining Trump in China for high-stakes Xi Jinping meeting. Well, here we go. This is amazing. This is the most important foreign trip that President Trump has done. Not by a little, by a lot. Donald Trump going to China. He'll be traveling to China this month. And he's going to be taking Elon with him. A massive, massive move, and also a signal as to who's on Trump's side, who is Team America. You love to see it, Elon Musk. And also Tim Cook will be joining President Trump as he lobbies President Xi Jinping to invest in America. They'll also have people from Meta and BlackRock, of course, and Boeing. Looks like some of the people that are part of the delegation, the White House told the Post. The heavy firepower from Wall Street and tech comes as Trump tries to right trade with imbalance Beijing. He wants Xi to invest in America and pressing China about massive orders for American planes, soybeans, and other goods. Trump and Musk's bromance is back on track after a very public falling out in 2025. That's why Musk called for Trump's impeachment, and the president suggesting that he'll deport Elon Musk. Wild times, dude. But they slowly rebuilt their friendship. Musk had.
Have you seen the roasts of Elon Musk and Donald Trump? They came up in my feed recently. Hilarious. These guys, they are not thin-skinned. They can take it as well as they can give it.
Has reappeared at some White House events, particularly tied to SpaceX company. Trump was one of the biggest contributors. Elon was one of the biggest contributors to Trump's 2024 campaign and led Doge. So look at this. Some of the people. Visa, Tesla, SpaceX, MasterCard. All right. Maybe you recognize some of the names. Maybe you don't. But Elon Musk is heading to China with Donald Trump.
I wonder if this isn't a signal of things to come, but why they might be in the same place at the same time in the future when things happen. So I'm just saying, like, I love seeing that they're together, but it's specifically said that the two witnesses prophesy for 1,260 days, and then something happens at the end of that. Anyway, let's move on to this video from Chase and his experience.
I was
on DMT. The reason I want to watch this is I find DMT very interesting. And he exposes a lot of interesting things about DMT. Worth hearing. I almost wonder, as I think about these things, like I almost wonder if DMT, because it's produced in the body, and the only time that it's ever really released is basically when you're on your deathbed. I almost wonder if maybe in the garden, before Adam and Eve contaminated the bloodline, if there wasn't more free access to DMT, and if it didn't maybe provide access to the spiritual realm. Because when you listen to people talk about it, and Chase, I think, is going to give probably one of the, considering the amount of time he was on it, he's going to give one of the most exhaustive descriptions about what it's like that you may have ever heard. I mean, this is well worth your time. So let's listen to this. It's only 12 minutes.
The 41st person in the world to do intravenous DMT.
So this is Chase Hughes. He used to work. He was the world's leading expert on mind control. I've showed a couple of videos on the channel before. He's got his own channel. He's an amazing channel to subscribe to. If you want to learn about how people are manipulated, the effect that social networks have on people, and that, I mean, like, he exposes like psyops. He's literally got, checklists on how to identify a psyop on his channel. But he has a brain tumor. And it's something that he's been struggling with for a couple of years. So he's got a lot of information on brain health and how he is overcoming this brain tumor. One of the reasons why he went on DMT was to help rewire his brain, but also his heart, which you'll learn about in this video. But he's just a treasure trove of information. So let's get into this.
5 hours.
Just for our audience to know,
that's right. You were about to do it when we sat here last.
Yeah.
And so I would love to have you share about that experience.
But just for reference, most other DMT, they can be a long time in the dimensions you go into, but they're really just about 20 minutes, a DMT experience.
Yeah, I think the average is 8.
8. Okay. So you went in for 5 hours.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
So, I mean, just for the record, I went in for neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
I got the results of a brain scan, and like 38% of my brain is not even working, to the point where I shouldn't really be able to function very well. And I'm fine. I'm better than better than I was in my 20s now.
He has a pretty detailed regimen of medicine that he takes in order to keep his brain viable.
And I wanted the neurogenesis, which means like when you're on a psychedelic, neurogenesis means that your brain is getting this boost of a chemical called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And the BDNF helps new little baby neurons get made, which are like 99% of them, 95% of them are in the hippocampus area that we know of only. And it also enables this other thing called LTP, long-term potentiation, which means that your neurons can get a divorce when they need to, which is long-term depotentiation. And they can get married to ones that they need to. So like if you have a damaged area of your brain here, this, what's called, it's a neuroplasticity, but there's a subtype of neuroplasticity called synaptic plasticity, where the synapses can get a divorce. And then like, hey, these guys used to talk to each other. We're going to wrap around this damaged area, and we're going to form a new network around damage. So I was really trying to do that. But the journey itself, oh my God, 5 hours of just being ripped out of this entire reality. It's kind of like you get like you're pulled outside of the Truman Show, and like you can see all of this, and it's more real than reality is. It's 1,000 times more real than this.
That is everything that he says is really common to the experience on DMT. I've never done DMT, but I find it incredibly fascinating because it's released, when people are on their deathbed. It's what seems to contribute to the near-death experience, and he's going to talk about this even more. But everybody experiences exactly the same thing, which is really fascinating. This is why I was wondering. I almost wonder if maybe with the Earth in a different configuration, pre-flood atmosphere, if our bodies if you weren't able to, and this, some people maybe, I almost wonder if like those autistic children who can go to a place where they can visit each other. I almost wonder if they don't have, excess DMT, or if they don't have the ability to automatically release DMT, that to explain some of these things. We'll talk about it more as he describes what happens.
Ever can or could hope to be. And it kind of ruins you in a little bit, in a good way, where when you come back, like this looks like a cartoon oil painting when you come back from something on DMT.
Do you recall like any specifics, like nuggets, moments you kind of share?
Yeah. So the first, when it was intravenous. So I had it in my arm. I was laying down. These people held the space so beautifully well, and they had a beautiful space for it. And that first moment, because when you do DMT, everyone goes to this place called the waiting room, which you're familiar with probably.
I've heard of it. I've actually, this is one of probably the only real psychedelic I haven't done. I've done 5-MeO, but never DMT.
Okay. It's heavy. I mean, the way that Kevin described it, he was the guy who facilitated our experience. He had the best word to describe DMT that I've ever heard in my life. He just said, DMT is big. It's big in a way that you cannot fathom, describe, comprehend, imagine, or even come close to understanding how big DMT is. And that is just the perfect word for me. But the first thing that happened right when I was in there, I buzzed right past the waiting room, because the machine is an anesthesiology machine. So it's basically like there's a giant fat syringe full of DMT, and there's a machine that pumps it at a certain milliliters per minute rate. And like, if you want to go up, you want to launch, they could just turn the dial and it pump. It'll do a little boost and you're launched out. So I
obviously did that. Right?
Yeah. I spent
there's so much information coming out now about how our bodies are quantum, like quantum biology is becoming more and more studied. And we're seeing more and more information about, like things are so small. There's like we can only see things at a certain level, and we can see pretty small things. But they're discovering that like the interconnectedness, like the reason why a mom will know their child is in danger, is because there's like this quantum connection where there's like an entanglement of cells, to where we can sense certain things, and some people are better at it than others. But there's also this idea, I don't know did you guys see Glenn Beck's video on time travel? That deals with some of this quantum mechanics with the biology, and that not only are we likely connected at such a deep level, like such a small level that it's even below what we can see with our technology. I wonder if like things like DMT don't allow us to like detach from our body and visit these quantum realms. Interesting thoughts.
3 milliseconds in the waiting room, and I was up there instantly, and these beings, and for 4,500 years, we've all seen the exact same beings up there. Every human, without any exception, sees the exact same entities on DMT for 4,500 years, which is bizarre. But these things shoved me down onto this like stainless steel kind of medical table, and from pelvis all the way up to my neck, like cut my body open with these massive shears.
So with Jesus being pure blood and not having contamination, I almost wonder if he couldn't see like the beings that we see on DMT, which I haven't seen them, but what he's describing. And if you listen to other stories, other people having DMT trips, they all describe similar experiences and the same beings. I almost wonder if Jesus, being pure of blood, didn't have access to these things, and could be why he could like. It could be behind behind healing. Like if he's able on his authority to command these beings to do something in your body, then that gives you a better idea of how healing takes place. So if you listen to what he says, he's and this gets, there's a twist in here that I won't spoil, but the reason he went on this 5-hour DMT experience was to help rewire his brain, because he's been fighting with a tumor in his brain. And he described some things that are really interesting, to where if you game out what it could mean, this could answer what it is that Jesus, why he was different, and what it is that he was doing, and the power and authority that he made available to us. The same thing that he did, that he had access to, he gave us. Those who look to him, those who he paid for with his life, with his blood, get this same power and authority.
And it didn't hurt. Like there was no pain, and I wasn't scared at all. Like if it happened in this life, yeah, it would be terrifying. But on the DMT space, everything's okay. Like it's full of love and non-judgment and all that stuff. And they're weird looking light beings that kind of look like they're aliens. But I could hear them, every single sound. I could hear my organs kind of sloshing as they pushed their hands. I could feel
ASMR.
Every single thing that they were doing to me. And just imagine it's 10,000 more times more real than this. And I was going through this, and then this other.
Can I ask a question? So are you here looking at them, or are you also here looking at them and then also completely objectified where you're looking at it?
No, I was in my head.
Okay. So you're in the subjective.
Yes.
Okay. You're looking at this as we see things. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of laid down on this table looking up. And then this one holds my forehead down and sticks a drill bit like this long into my nose. It's freezing cold. And it goes up into my nose, and I could feel it going further and further and further, all the way until it bumps the back of my skull. And the drill bit it doesn't go through my skull, but it's pushing my head down onto the table where I can't pick my head up. And it is ice cold.
One of the reasons why I wonder if this isn't, some kind of whatever DMT is, if it doesn't allow us access to another dimension or the spiritual realm, and if those creatures there aren't responsible for healing in our body, there's angels in the book of Enoch that are in charge of our health, our healing. So when Jesus is healing or praying, he's basically commanding them to work and do something in our body. That's what I think of when he's describing what he's describing here.
And there's no pain.
Specifically the angels. Like if you think of these beings as the ones who are in charge of healing and stuff like that, and Jesus having the authority to command them, tells them what to do. But also remember, we've been given this power and authority, which is going to be important in a minute.
But then I could feel like stuff moving inside of my head, like something could come out of this drill bit. I don't know. Stuff was going on. And then all kinds of other shit happened for 5 hours that never stopped. I took a pee break. So during the experience, like if you need a pee or something, or if you want to come down a little bit, they can kind of just adjust your altitude right there on that little machine, which is unbelievable. But then I'm done with the whole experience. I go back to the hotel. And then I find out the night before we were at their house just to kind of, I'm going to look at the space. We're going to talk to them. They're the nicest people. They do this at their home in Denver. And I didn't know this, but this guy, he's a genetic scientist. He's a genetic science research expert who makes the medicine. But he took Michelle, my wife, into the kitchen and into the freezer and showed her this little Pelican box of vials so she could select the vials that I would use the next day. And they prayed over these vials.
This is a trip.
And right after I told her everything, she said the only prayer that I said was for them to immediately fix your heart and then your head. Because I have a heart thing going on as well. And I have a brain disease. And she told the DM.
Come on now. Come on. That's a trip. If that's true, and I believe him, I have no reason not to believe Chase. I've listened to him for a long time. He seems like a stand-up guy. He seems like he tells the truth. Granted, he is the foremost expert in the world on brainwashing. Maybe it's all some kind of a psyop. Maybe the people in charge, the deep state, or the power rulers of the darkness of the world have employed him to deceive us. I don't think so, because I've heard this same thing from many other people. And isn't that interesting that they prayed over the vials that were going to be used, and without him knowing it, the first thing he experienced is these beings cutting him open and working on his heart and also in his brain. I don't think that's any coincidence. This is what makes me go, we don't really fully understand our reality.
EMT to do that the night before.
Wow. That was a question I was going to ask. Wow. And
then that was the first order of business that they had.
Just went straight to it.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know. I never knew that she even went in the kitchen. Like I just thought they were out bullshitting somewhere in the house.
Wow. And how have you been since?
Yeah. What was it like? Because I know we were in touch right after that, and it was like kind of putting the pieces back together was kind of first order of business.
Yeah. It started off with a depression. And I remember I'm laying there on this thing. I'm in this experience. They're like, all right, Chase, we're gonna go ahead and start bringing you down. And the unwillingness that I had to come back here was monumental. Like I would just please kill me. Like I didn't say that, but I did say I have a tape of the entire thing. I videoed it coming down. I did ask 39 times throughout that whole experience if I was dead.
Wow.
Like out loud, I'm like, am I dead? 39 times. That's how deep it was. Like I didn't know if I still had a body or if I was dead. I had no clue. It was really deep. And coming down, it felt like there is absolutely zero way for me to return back to this life without developing some narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was really depressing to me, that I had to go back and like develop a little just to survive, just to live on this planet. You had to have some narcissism, and I was crying so fucking hard, man. And these, God bless these people, wiping my tears and snot coming out of my nose. But it was like I did not really want to come back. It's kind of like if randomly someone like you feel a weird thing on your head, you don't know what it is. There's nobody in the house. You feel this thing moving on your head, and all of a sudden you're in another reality, and someone just took off a VR helmet, and this is where you've been the whole time. You're just inside of a little VR game.
Wow.
And then like you go to like actual reality where there's just unlimited love and peace and abundance, and they're like, okay, we got to put the helmet back on. You've got to go back inside the video game.
Fuck.
That's what it felt like, man. And just kind of integrating after 5 hours of that was really, really tough for probably a couple weeks.
How, 2 questions. 5 hours of our Earth plane linear time was about how long in the DMT world, if you have any sense of that?
It was 6 months.
Wow.
5 or 6 months is what it felt like.
Did you have like you had a whole...
Reminds me of those people that get concussions and they live an entire life in a matter of minutes while they're knocked out.
Whole life and little world happening up there?
Yeah, but it wasn't like, it wasn't me per se. It was just kind of, I was with other things happening, and I could kind of observe things happening and talk to these creatures and stuff and these entities. But it's like we're these little infantile hairless monkeys, like our little species. It's so funny. And then we're like, you know what I want to learn today? I'm going to learn the secrets of the universe. and then you do DMT, and they're like, all right, motherfucker. And they show it all to you, and you can't comprehend it. You can't understand it. You'll never be able to piece any of it together and try explaining 1/1000th of 1%.
I think we'll eventually get it. We've all got to start somewhere. I think that's the whole point of life, is building your soul so that there's association. That's why I think it's so important what you believe shapes who you are. Is, I think of this world, this life like an incubator, to where, we're but babies right now. There's an eternity of time to learn these things. I think we'll eventually, we're just getting the start. I think we'll eventually have an understanding of these things, and things are going to make so much more sense.
% of it to another human being, good luck. But they still show it to you. And it's like, you're not bringing it back. You're not going to carry it with you back when you come back here. We are doing some experimentation with mixing high doses of Alzheimer's drugs with the DMT.
Interesting.
So that we can bring back much bigger chunks of data and information there. And there's a guy named Andrew Gallimore, and he's doing a whole lot of research with this. It's beautiful, beautiful brain that this guy has. Trying to map out, not a physical map, but trying to understand and like develop a knowledge of this hyperspace, whatever the places that we go on the DMT.
How about the biological and neurological surgery that they did or work on you? How's your heart and your brain been since you had the procedures done?
0 problems with anything.
Wow.
Since then.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? He also goes on to say, which this is kind of common knowledge, that it's possible.
No, I mean, like
it's possible to actually be banned from the DMT realm. This is what makes me think that it's possibly connecting you spiritually to another dimension or to heaven. This could be what the Bible refers to as heaven, or, you know, when people, heaven specifically where other beings are, like maybe where the angels are. It could just be some kind of a remote connection. Like we may be able to physically go there, but DMT may be able to just connect you remotely. Which I don't know if they have the ability to affect your body. That's really fascinating. But that's a much longer interview. We just looked at 12 minutes of it today, the main experience. But he's also talked about how people will literally get banned from the realm if they piss off the beings or do something they're not supposed to do. Like they'll get banned to where no matter what amount of DMT that they take, it has zero effect. Or they'll just see you're not allowed here anymore, and then they're out. So that's really interesting. Yeah, so I find it fascinating that all these things are happening now. You know, it's almost like it's almost like a revealing of information. Like now's the time to start to understand these things. Yeah, I'm aware of the abductee experience. We are aware of good and bad spirits. Like, you know, that could involve demons, which is very likely why God warned Adam not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, is because he knew that ultimately it would lead to demons. And, you know, when they're disconnected from their bodies, they may be part of that realm. You know, so they could be going into somebody's body and possessing them, and somehow doing that. That might be why there's similar experiences. Is you know, you may be interacting with an evil spirit versus, and it could also be there could be other beings in this universe. I'm very interested to see what the Trump administration releases when they finally get around to showing documentation on actual extraterrestrials. Like, it'll be cool if they've got pictures. The Troy Brewer had mentioned that they were going to release that there are up to 5 different species that they're aware of. So that'll be interesting. So the fact that things are being revealed right now indicates to me that the kingdoms of this world are being transferred to the kingdom of God, which will explain a lot of stuff. Like that could explain why there's been limited access to heaven, limited access to the spiritual realm. You know, maybe Adam absolutely did transfer authority to some other being. Maybe that's who we know as as Satan or the devil. I don't know. I don't have enough information to say conclusively. We've gone through this before on the channel that Satan could refer to the collective realm of demons and evil spirits, and the contaminated blood that results in our sin. You know, we could struggle because we don't have this connection to the spiritual realm, right? Like if, you know, our bodies are not the same as they were intended to be when they were originally in the garden, that could be why we have confusion and don't understand things, which hopefully that'll be restored when Christ comes back. All I can tell you is the time is short. There's a lot of prophecy that's been coming to pass. The timeline seems to be indicating that we're there. You know, we're seeing the 2 witnesses. We're seeing 2 men that seem to be the 2 witnesses prophesy. And what they're doing is they're exposing evil. They're affecting a transition, which I believe is the transition to the kingdoms of this world becoming the kingdoms of God and his Messiah. So it's exciting. Why don't we answer some questions? Do you guys have any questions in the chat? Also, we haven't answered any questions on the community board in a while, so we can go answer some of those. But I get what you're saying, Dina, with the there's a similarities with abductees. It just, I don't know, does it feel like a puzzle piece was put into place? Like within the last week or so, it feels to me like there was like a puzzle piece. Like with the it's not really the UFO disclosure, but it kind of is. It's kind of like with the UFO disclosure and, what we're learning about DMT and with the prophecies being fulfilled is I don't know. I feel like we know more today than we did a couple weeks ago. All right, let's look at, let's answer some of these questions. Feel free to ask any questions you want in the chat. We'll spend a couple of minutes on this. All right, what do we got? Of course, what part of no man knows the day or hour is hard to understand? Boy, should I be nice or mean? All right. Peter's Bastion. If you're watching, please read the contexts. It seems as though what you understand about no man knows the day or hour, you're taking that out of context. So a couple of points is there's more after this verse. There's no man knows the day or hour. There's more to it. So you're quoting this out of context. And also, it is in that same context, it's implied multiple times that we are responsible for knowing what we can, right? But the biggest thing is no man knows the day or hour. That's the reason we watch, right? So anytime somebody makes this statement that no man knows the day or hour, as though it means that they're trying to shame you for looking for prophecy being fulfilled. Why would you do that? We're told to watch over 7 times. Jesus tells us more than 7 times for if things like this, for if the good man of the house had known in what hour the thief would come, he would have watched. So there's a reference to he would have watched. Well, he says that in different ways, that if you do not watch, I will come upon you like a thief in the night. In other words, it's implied that we should pay attention, right? So this no man knows the day or hour is not an excuse or something to be ashamed of. And Grant, I understand where you're coming from with this comment. I understand where people are coming from. My mom uses this all the time. I had to stop telling her what I'm learning, because she's deferred to this statement just because she just doesn't want to be disappointed anymore. There was a time where she was super excited, where pretty much every September I'm like, this is the year, this is when the rapture is going to be. But she got tired, she got worn out, which oddly enough is one of the signs that the saints would be worn out, because we would keep, there's things that would happen that would make us keep thinking, this has got to be it, this has got to be it. But regardless, we're told to watch. We're told to pay attention. So it's not an excuse, and it's not something that we should be ashamed of. We are told to watch. We watch because we don't know the day or hour. With that being said, there have been irrefutable signs, and there is an overwhelming amount of data that suggests that we are within 4 years of the 1,000-year millennial reign. Now, with that said, it's highly likely that 2026 is when Christ will gather together his elect, which is that time that most people are referring to as the rapture. And that is because there's an alignment with the eclipses, which match things which are written. We've done some exhaustive work on the timelines and reasonings. I'm not going to get into it in this because I want to get to more comments. But suffice it to say, that's precisely the reason that we watch, is because we don't know the day or hour. You get a heart for commenting. Like the title, dude. Trump warns deal massive bomb. Let's see. Trump warns deal / massive bombing. Trump reveals trillions in taxes. Okay. How come these so-called aliens are so advanced, but they don't know how to make clothes? Huh? We didn't even talk about clothes. We only talked about ships so far. Dina says, Jesus tells you no matter what, you will not know the day or hour, then you will know the season. I'm paraphrasing. Well, I mean, obviously we're going to know the day or hour. So it says in Matthew 24 that the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the clouds, and you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds. I mean, like at that point in time, we will know. As far as knowing in advance, you're correct. We're not gonna. It's like we're not gonna know. We're not gonna know. We're not gonna know. Oh, whoa! Is it happening? It's happening. There he is. Okay, wow. This is pretty much something like that. So yeah. You are right. We're not gonna know until we do. Then we will know. How come the so-called aliens are so advanced that they don't know how to make clothes? I think that'll make more sense once they actually disclose the aliens that they're aware of. Let's see, I'll become a Christian the moment I see Jesus with my own eyes, and I see him prove it. Until then, I'll walk my own path with God of truth and righteousness. Fair enough. I'm a very proof-driven person as well. I do believe that Jesus. So, and here's the thing that we need to be honest about is the Bible is a book. I just happen to believe that the book is what the information that it contains was inspired by the creator of the heavens and the earth. And what's interesting is I think now we have more evidence now and more reason now to believe it than we ever have before, because the things that are written in it, the things that were written 2,000 years ago are coming to pass. To me, that is concrete evidence, like the Revelation 12 sign. If you actually go research the Revelation 12 sign, only happens one time. And then the events that happen after that, it gets to a point to where the evidence is overwhelming, to where, sure, you could chalk a couple of things up to coincidence, but there gets a point to where it's just like, this is no longer a coincidence. This clearly is the timeline. You know what I mean? Same thing with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. You can make arguments that they're not the two witnesses, but every time somebody makes an attempt and fails, that's a fulfillment that number one, they torment people, causing them to want to kill them, and number two, they can't be killed. So it's just like, at what point do you go, maybe this is the way it is? Anyway, if someone could screw up God, this guy is the guy. Aw, that hurts. If I could screw up God. Why is that? I'm curious why you would say that. I can only imagine that you would say something like that because what I'm saying is drastically different than what you believe. And if that's the case, then why do you assume that I'm screwing something up? So why are you assuming I'm wrong and you're right? I would appreciate it if you would provide at least one point that we disagree on. Something that you think I've screwed up on. That way you're actually, if I am wrong, you're helping me. You're not helping anyone if you're just claiming that I'm screwing up God. And I don't think there's anything I could do to screw up God. God is everywhere present and much bigger than me. So the only thing I could screw up would be, in the hearts and minds of those who listen to this channel. And I'd like to believe that people come here because I have a very honest approach to God, to the scripture, and to religion. Which tends to happen when you've been lied to, when you've been cheated, when you've been manipulated, abused, and hurt. You tend to get very critical of things, and you check and you double check things that you believe to make sure that you don't go down the same paths that you've been down before. Sorry if you feel like I'm screwing up God in your mind. Hopefully I'm shedding some light and dispelling some darkness with the things that I'm sharing. Oh, thank you. Let's see. I agree with everything you're saying, except I believe Jesus was trying to tell us that Yahweh was Satan. Just look at the character. Well, it's not new. It's not a common belief, not a common thing. I've heard this more and more lately. This idea that what we believe as God is Satan. So it's this idea that the God of the world has become what we know as God, and that and it's based on the idea of like, why would a benevolent, loving God tell you to wipe out the Canaanites and their animals and their children? And I think I think if you just take it at face value, you're very fair in that approach, right? If you're like, if you have this, if your idea of love is happy, happy, joy, joy, beautiful hearts and rainbows and green pastures, I can understand your perspective. But from a realistic perspective, if there is corruption, and that these people are going to continue so if that these people are evil at their core, maybe they're cannibals, and if something isn't done, if even one of them is allowed to survive, maybe there's something spiritual about them, right? If even one of them is allowed to survive, that they will increase in population quickly, take over the world and kill everybody. If that is the future, it's kind of like the baby Hitler dilemma. If you had the ability to go back in time and snuff out baby Hitler, would you do it? This could be a case to where, things are already bad. God had already warned Adam and Eve. The loving thing to do, God did in the very beginning. True love is a God of freedom and free-willed choice. He allows us to make mistakes, and he allows us to suffer consequences. And it's to such a degree that, yes, the consequences can persist for thousands of years. To be fair, God did warn Adam and Eve in the very beginning, of all the trees of the garden you may freely eat, except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the day that you eat thereof, thou shalt surely die. And sure enough, that's what happened. Death was introduced at that point in time. So we've been dealing with the consequences of that decision in one way, shape, or form ever since then. And God has had to take drastic actions in more ways than one in order to preserve what he created in mankind. He wiped out the entire earth except for 8 people. And then, he's had to have people, take out evil people. So I guess it's just a matter of perspective, but I don't believe that we're so deceived that people are under the impression that who we're serving as God is really the devil. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think that's the case. That's just me personally. I think that we suffer because God is loving. And he gave fair warning in the very beginning, and we're dealing with the consequences of the choices that Adam and Eve made. And God so loved the world that even though we screwed up, and even though we suffer all of this evil and these consequences, that even still he pre-planned a way to save us. In the end, here's the thing, is in the end, we'll all be raised and we'll all give account for who we are and what we've done. I believe that to be the case. I believe that there will come a day that will stand in judgment, and some will receive rewards, some will awake to everlasting life, and some to what does it say? Everlasting condemnation. Like, you're going to suffer the consequences of your poor decisions. So I do believe that's the case, that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. This is why I teach on this channel that it's less about your theology and more about who you are. Is your heart one that would save somebody even if you don't agree with them? Or are you the type of person that's just going to walk away and let somebody die? Think about that. The things that you believe, how do they affect the way you treat others? And then tell me which God you serve. Do you hate your brother for stupid reasons? Or do you love your brother even though they're stupid? All right, one more. Let's see. The military used to be the military. There wasn't a family military. It sounds like a dangerous separation from the actual... Here, let me expand this. Sounds like a dangerous separation from the actual taxpayers paying and footing the bill and making some people special that really don't have anything to do with the war. People get married and have babies. You usually do that when you come home from war. It wasn't a lifetime career. How did you watch the movie? They moved the military families in and leave us to burn. As far as all that fluff what are you referring to? This is the alien disclosure video. As far as all that fluff goes, it seems like all I'm doing is losing my freedoms with all this military involvement in every freaking country. In a war that's lasted over 40 freaking years. Piss or get off the pot. Melody, I'm not sure exactly what it is that you're referring to. I'm trying to think, what did we cover in that video? I'm pretty sure that I assume that you're referring to the wars that are happening right now. The war between Russia and Ukraine, going into Iran, stuff like that. But some of your comments seem to need more context, really. You usually do that when you go to war. I can see you're frustrated. It seems like you're frustrated about the endless wars, but that's just part of the world we live in right now. Hopefully you can see that this is coming to an end, that what's happening now is the result of a transition. We're warned in the Bible about, tribulations and trials and troubles. That's for sure. Cold War lasted 40 years. Huh. All right, one more. The elite are preparing for a magnetic pole shift in May of 2040. 2020, White House, 2024. Black Horse. Okay, so you have a timeline. Go on. Oh, I didn't tell you guys this. I was able to restore the data on the timeline website. So this works again. So you guys can come in here and do your timelines. I noticed right away that Claire has already started. Hopefully, either updating or fixing whatever was changed. I think I got the most recent update. If there's any significant data loss, let me know. I was able to restore the hard drive. I was able to get everything off of it. I just may not have restored the most recent update. I think I did. Let me know if I didn't. Anyway, if you have a timeline, Blake Ev, if you want to map it out for me to review, this is pretty simple. By all means, please go to twowitnesseslive.com and go to our timeline app and add in any data that you want. So I agree with you on 2020 being the white horse. The red horse, we're not in agreement on 2024. I think you're missing some important data. Yeah, I don't think we'll make it to 2040. One thing that Suspicious Observers he's been very consistent lately in that the timeline of the pole shift is advancing so quick that they don't know when it's going to happen. He keeps saying we're long overdue. The estimates are like 2040, 2050, but he's continually moved that forward. I don't know if you watch his shows on a regular basis. He's constantly saying that it's accelerating. So, and I think that's why the elites are building their bunkers, is they're well aware that it could happen at any time. But yeah, so our timeline doesn't agree, but I would love to see your timeline on the Two Witnesses Live website, and then we can compare to see the differences. You think you're a prophet? No, I do not. I don't think I'm a prophet, and I don't want to be a prophet because prophets get their asses. They don't live very good lives, and I love my life. I love my family. I love my God. I do not think I'm a prophet in any way, shape, or form. Stick around. You'll find out. Maybe from telling the truth perspective, I do try very hard to tell the truth and own up to my own mistakes. And if I'm lying about something, to identify it, because you can lie without realizing you're lying. A lot of people retell stories that they've never verified. Welcome to church. This is so often why, so many people don't realize how scripted churches are. You can literally, here's how scripted churches are. You can literally go to school to learn how to do the business of a church, and they will give you the sermons and the teachings to teach at that church, to where you don't really even have to learn the Bible in order to run a church. That's how scripted things are. People, there's an agreed upon doctrine and a theology within certain denominations. Like, pick your denomination, and there's a pre-approved set of doctrine that you are required in a lot of cases to teach. If you actually study the Bible, and honestly, some of these things are not that hard to understand. We sometimes work it up so in our mind that it's too hard and too difficult to understand. But I even fall prey to that. Like the whole spirit of Antichrist. Like, I kid you not, I was teaching the same thing that most everybody teaches about the Antichrist right now. It wasn't until I finally sat down and did a study and read it and just I got a pen and paper, and I'm like, I'm going to write down the attributes of these things, and just started to really think it through, to where I went, holy crap, I've been lying about this the entire time. It's not, it's an unintentional lie, in that I've been repeating the story as though it's true. But when I finally really studied it and realized, wait a minute, the things that we're saying about the Antichrist are not written. These are assumptions, and they're assumptions based on conflating different sections of the scripture together. And when you finally look at the details, you can actually see, wait a minute, these are different things. People do that all the time. They, just because something's similar, they think they're identical, which is really dangerous in the scripture, because more often than not, there's a summary and an expansion as a pattern, and it repeats. Summary, expansion, to where you don't have the details, the detailed understanding of something until something happens the first time, and then a second time, and then a third time. And then because they follow the pattern, you have a bigger, fuller understanding of the thing that happened. Anyway. All right. Well, that's probably good for now. You guys have any comments in the chat? Let's see. You can tell Cold War lasted 40 years. War was reduced the freedom of the people. It sounds like she is saying. Okay. Biden, the red horse, took peace from the earth. Yes. Yep. Here, we can do a quick look at the timeline just to have it side by side with that comment. So I'm not saying that I'm 100% right on this, but this is not based on my opinion, other than it's my opinion that the eclipses mark out these time frames, and there's a pattern to them. So this is the Revelation 12 sign. It only happens one time. It's very unique. It acts like an anchor point. So this happened on September 2017. That's the beginning of this timeline. And the end here is 14 years. So we've already gone through 7 years. So I extended it, going, okay, well, I guess we got to go till at least 14 years. God works in 7-year cycles. So you've got the anchor points. Revelation 4 is like a legend. It tells you how to unlock the book of Revelation and how to recognize when the events are happening. I've explained this before on the channel. Actually, I need to pin the video to the channel, the one I just did. Did I just do an exhaustive one? I think I did. Anyway, there's one pinned to the channel that explains all of this. Revelation 4 is like a legend. It's a key to understanding how to identify the signs being opened. Long story short, eclipses. So this eclipse marked the COVID pandemic, the white horse going forth, conquering and to conquer. This eclipse on December 14th, 2020, marked the red horse, the rider on the red horse, who's given power to take peace, and he's given a great sword. This seems to be Biden and the vaccine. This eclipse happened on June 10th, 2021. Everybody gets this one wrong. This one requires looking at the Greek. The Greek word for pair of balances is the Greek word zugos, which means yoke. And I didn't know that until this actually happened. I was wondering, okay, so this fits the pattern of the seals being opened, but there's no famine, at least not where I was at. And what did happen on this day, though, is Joe Biden and Boris Johnson signed the new Atlantic Charter, which yoked together the United States and the United Kingdom. A yoke is like a piece of wood that combines the strength of two animals. So countries are often called beasts. So it's an interesting correlation. That Greek word zugos means yoke. This is what it's referring to. This is called a yoke. And then you've got the Al-Aqsa flood, which is when Hamas invaded Israel, and then Israel responded with Operation Iron Sword. There was an eclipse on that day. So you've got the rider on the pale horse is death, followed by hell, which there's two entities involved in that one, which there were two events involved with the Al-Aqsa flood. There you go. So there's the big overview of this is what basically Revelation 4 through 6 is telling us right there. So that's the timeline I've put together. It could be right, it could be wrong. That's just based on hard work and trial and error. And it's been updated a couple of times as we learn new things. It gets updated. What else? The next comment was about the Israeli flag. Oh, what's with the satanic star? The 7-branch menorah should be on that flag. Shalom. That's the flag of Israel. Take it up with them. Oops. Yep. This flag, this star right here. I don't pretend to know all the history and everything associated with this. The reason the flags are here is this. I stand with Israel. I stand with the United States. If you ask me what my religion is, I'd say it's somewhere right in the middle of Christians and Jews. I'm a Christ-Jew or Jew-Christian. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. You can make an honest mistake that doesn't mean you deliberately lied. True. I think you've called me out on that before, Fury. I'm just trying to communicate the idea that if you're so here's the idea that I'm trying to communicate with that is if you teach something as though it's true and you portray that you believe it's true and you've never actually checked, but you continue to insist that it's true, is that just a mistake? Or is that potential, or is there a category for you speaking an untruth? I mean, technically, I think it makes you a false prophet. This is why I opted, this is one of the reasons why I had to take a step back from calling people out on false prophets, is because is our false prophets just people making that mistake to where they're teaching something that's not true? Maybe they believe something to be true, and therefore they didn't chase it down far enough to get to the real truth, so they continue to reteach the thing that's not true. Is that what makes somebody a false prophet? I mean, a false prophet sounds bad because one of the consequences for saying you were a prophet and, saying things were going to come to pass and they don't come to pass was death. That was the consequences of being a false prophet in the Old Testament. But is it possible that what we understand as prophets today are different from that? Because a prophet could be someone who speaks the truth, right? If God gives you, or if because God has, through the course of your life taught you something by, the wisdom of your life, if you know something to be true and you stand on that truth in the face of opposition, I would consider that prophetic. I think some people limit prophets to only telling the future. But I think there's far more involved in being a prophet than that. And you see that with like Elijah, hearing from God and going to tell, kings the way it is. Here's the way it is. These are the consequences. Do this or else. Do you think the war in Gaza will start up again? Good question. Something that I would say I probably failed to follow up on is there's a lot written about the wars in the end times. There's a lot of information. It would be very interesting. Maybe we could do an app. Another app idea. It would be very interesting to take all of that information about the wars in the end time and map it out and try and get it added to a calendar to see if we can identify if there is going to be a flare-up and to see if we can match it with what's going on. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll work on that as my next app. Tracking everything that's talked about with the wars in the end times. Oh. Yeah, I don't read the whole chat. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I pick up on one line and assume I know that I just assume everything is about me. The world revolves around me, right? Don't we all do that? No, you're right. It's my fault. And it's, to be fair, also the way that the chat works is when I scroll to catch up on the history, which it's not been a problem today. But typically when you guys are really vocal in the chat, when I'm scrolling, every time somebody makes a new post, it resets the chat. I don't know why that is. It's a bug in the way they have these chats set up. Alrighty. That's probably a good place to stop. If you guys like this content, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Yeah. I was trying to remember. I thought I had something else I said I was going to cover before we went. Sorry, I know I just totally stopped there. Let me go back and check something. I thought I told you I was going to show something else before we left. Oh, I did. So did I tell you? I don't know. I don't remember if I brought this up or not. But I had promised that I was going to scan in the rest of the alien documents, the UFO disclosure. I can't remember if I brought this up or not, but I wanted to make sure that I made a point of this, is I did scan in the rest of the documents. So I've scanned in all 161 documents into AI and had it do an analysis. There wasn't anything additional than what we went through on Friday. So it was additional witnesses and testimony, but nothing different than what we had already covered. In other words, the shape and velocity and the accounts, all that information was basically the same. There wasn't anything new. There wasn't anything confirmed or anything like that. So I do have the full set of documents uploaded into a chat context so that we could actually query it if you have any questions or anything that we can do with that to have AI analyze what we know so far. So that is done. It's just I don't have anything else to report on that. So now we're just waiting for the next release, which hopefully will have to do with the alien beings. But who knows? Maybe they'll just continue to release more UFO stuff, because this UFO stuff was kind of a bomb. One of them was already debunked as a paraglider. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm happy that they're releasing this information. For me, it's confirmation. I hope. I don't think that it's going to be the Great Deception. The Great Deception, I think, is just whatever takes people away from God. And the reason I think that is Revelation 14. The 144,000, they're sealed with the Lamb's Father's name in their forehead. I think that we should pay close attention to who the fact that the 144,000 are sealed with the Lamb's Father's name. And that record is immediately after it talks about the mark of the beast. So as far as the great deception that Thessalonians talks about, God will send a great deception, strong delusion. I mean, a lot of people think that's the alien delusion. I don't think it is necessarily, unless, of course, the alien delusion is taking people away from God. So whatever it is, I think it's a test, to see who you are, who you truly are in your heart. That seems to be the period of time that we're in right now. Is the things that are going on in the world right now are really revealing who you are. And as for me and my household, we're trying to figure out how we can better please God. How can we continue to obey the commands that Jesus left before he ascended? Think about how he's going to separate people. The sheep and the goats. This is what convicts me right now, is how can I better serve my fellow man? What can we do that will please him so that we end up on the side with the sheep, not the side with the goats. That's the focus. What we should be doing until he returns. That's what my mom constantly reminds me of too. Every time I try and tell her I learned something new about the end times. Are you a sheep or a goat, son? Anyway, I'll leave you guys with that. If you like this content, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to get notifications. Come back and visit us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining me. I do this for you guys. God bless. Actually, no, I do it because God has laid it on my heart to do it, but you guys make it a lot easier being here and having somebody who actually enjoys this as much as I do. So for that, I do it for you guys. God bless you guys. Shalom, shalom. See you tomorrow.